Welcome into the fantasy therapy session. Hello and welcome into the show that's made up. Everything's made up and the points don't matter. Trying to enjoy your fantasy teams? The injury god said no.
Go fuck yourself.
Let's use some medicinal healing, blow some smoke in more ways than one. Ooh, I've got some holy grail. As always, we start with what I got wrong and what I got right.
I'm stupid, you're smart. I was wrong, you were right. You're the best, I'm the worst. You're very good looking, I'm not attractive.
All right. As long as you're willing to admit that.
So right off the bat, my two biggest misses of the week, Devon Achane and Josh Jacobs. I thought both would be an absolute smash play. I thought Raheem Mostert would be excellent as well. He, didn't kill you, but Achane, however the fuck you want to say his name. He came into the game, 2 carries, knee injury on the same knee, immediately out, questionable, missed the rest of the game. That was a big old fucking L right in the lineup. That sucked. And Josh Jacobs, just the Raiders as a whole, the offense struggled. They kind of got beat up by the Dolphins, besides Devontae Adams pulling in a long touchdown. Sam Howell, Jahan Dotson, the whole fucking Commanders offense. That was the other one that I was like really wrong about. It's funny because on the Sunday live stream, someone had asked Jahan Dotson or Brandon Cooks, and I ended up going with Jahan Dotson. It technically ended up being the right answer because, Brandon Cooks didn't really have that good of a game, and Jahan Dotson got that one touchdown. But if not for Curtis Samuel getting ejected, that probably doesn't even happen, honestly. So this was just a fucking, it was a brutal game. And it's so funny, of course, because, and I was wrong about Saquon in the same game, who turned into a freaking wide receiver. But the funniest thing was on the Sunday live stream, it was like I was wrong. Because I said that, start these options and everything. But I had said kind of sardonically, sarcastically, offhandedly, watch this turn into a low scoring game and watch the Manders lose this to the fucking Giants. And then what do they go and do? What do they go and fucking do? These bastards. And then the other one that actually was just a really bad call, Trey McBride. I was thinking of him as like a high-end flex option. If you had multiple tight ends and you were looking to flex a tight end, I really liked Trey McBride, even over some running back options. I think someone had asked McBride or Singletary, and if I said McBride, I'm apologizing to you because Singletary was absolutely the right choice. He fucking smashed. And McBride was fine for like a tight end, but as a flex option, it was a no-go. And so I apologize to whoever you are out there that I made that terrible call. But I mean, fuck, with everything going on with the injuries, it's harder and harder, it feels like, to be right about fantasy football. But there were a couple things I did get right, and so let's check out what those were.
Not the kind of person to say a told us so, but you know what? I told us so. A told us so.
So, I mean, the big thing for me was Justin Fields and DJ Moore. I have so many shares of them. I did not trade really any of those shares, especially when they got injured, because I wasn't going to just sell low on them. I just kind of wrote it out. And unfortunately, those are some of the teams that aren't doing so well. However, this week, was a little bit of redemption, seeing Justin Fields and DJ Moore be that 1-2 fantasy combo that we had all expected. Now, in the leagues where I'm not past the trade deadline, I may or may not be actively trying to trade my Fields and DJ Moore stacks. But if I have to ride it out, I don't hate it as long as they're both healthy and on the field together. They're both absolutely viable. The other one is really funny because it's something that I came full circle on where in the preseason I was out, and then kind of more towards as we got closer to the regular season, I started to be a little bit more in, and now I'm fully back in on the running tandem of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So, when all that draft went down and they shipped out DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams to bring in basically their replicas in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I just didn't understand, doing all that work to get sideways moves at the running back position of all places, where even if the upgrades are there, I think they're minor overall for the team. Now the team is doing well and they're running the ball well. And so everything looks good. And what I saw and want to continue to see from Jahmyr Gibbs more than the rushing work is the receiving work. He went 6 for 6 again. So the 6 receptions, that is a baseline that you can live with in fantasy football. And then he's going to get some touchdowns and he's going to get rushing work. And David Montgomery is going to get the rest. And I think that's kind of what they had planned for and accounted for this offense. And I think going forward, you can honestly play Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in the same lineup. In fact, I have a trade out right now on a team that has Jahmyr Gibbs, and I'm still trying to trade for David Montgomery because I feel like, I can plug them both into my lineup, but if either one goes down, we've seen that the other one, that's absolute league winner stuff. So, when they're splitting the work comfortably, it feels like they're both decent flex plays. And then, even individually, they're absolute smash plays if, again, one of them happens to go down. Dak, Tony Pollard, and CeeDee Lamb, I just feel like, Cowboys can only maintain either the run game and defense or, throw it all over the yard pass game. And it seems to very much be one or the other. They just haven't been able to coexist. Now, CeeDee Lamb still managed to get it done. Dak wasn't terrible for fantasy, but it was kind of more what we saw at the beginning of the season where it was that baseline 20 points. And, Tony Pollard finally had a resurgent game, which is why I said, I think the lamentations of Tony Pollard's season really have been overblown and come from a place of fantasy football as opposed to reality. And he is going to have his games, and he'll have, probably a couple more games like this. And with just how abysmal the running back position is in general across the board, and with how many injuries we've seen this year, I would just stick with Tony Pollard. If you have him and you drafted him and you've wrote it out this long, I just would basically keep him at this point. Oh, sadness. We don't get to do who scored more than Kyle Pitts this week because the Falcons were on a bye. So we'll save that for next week. It'll be a little bit shorter of an episode today, but that is totally fine. We'll get right into the hearts and farts. So for the Hearts, the quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence coming back from the dead. Apparently he does have talent. He had 4 touchdowns, 2 through the air and 2 on the ground. So that was actually a little bit uncommon for his game. So just maybe be aware of that. Brock Purdy, Purdy-licious, continues to be delicious in that San Francisco 49ers offense with that plethora of weapons, those myriad sources that he has to exude the ball. So yeah, he's just been a smash. Justin Herbert, even in a losing effort, continues to be extremely good for fantasy football. Josh Allen. This is the funny one. Tommy DeVito. Hey! Tommy fucking DeVito. Hey! What's the matter with you, huh? I'm fucking Tommy DeVito, huh? I'm walking over here. So Tommy DeVito with the most hilarious fantasy relevant game that 1% of people out there started him for. And then kind of a baseline of like 20-ish points. Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. Even in the losing effort, Sam Howell for fantasy had a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown, so he managed to get it done. And then you also had Tua, Dobbs, Goff, and Dak again, just kind of right at that like 20-point bit. And then for the running back position, fucking Saquon wide receiver Barkley, Jalen Warren, literally it was that one huge run. CMC continues to do CMC things. Devin Singletary, all my Singletaries out there. Gus Bus and Joe Mixon back from the Thursday game. Both of them were good. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, like I had mentioned above earlier on, they continue to smash. Brian Robinson. There was a meme I shared on Twitter and on Facebook of the team that accidentally drafted Brian Robinson 4th overall instead of Bijan Robinson, and how that actually turned out to be the right pick, because Brian Robinson right now is the RB4 on the year and continues to be more fantasy relevant than Bijan Robinson, hilariously enough. James Cook caught a touchdown. Tony Pollard, aforementioned. Breece Hall, Rachaad White, and Ty Chandler. I think he got in the end zone is what it was. Wide receivers, Tank Dell. Holy shit, Tank Dell is just having himself a season. Calvin Ridley, just when everyone faded Calvin Ridley and finally were like putting him on the bench, I said, if you drafted Calvin Ridley and you believed in him and you've held on to him this long, you have to play him every week because of exactly this type of week, because you're going to hate when you're playing the game of, oh, I bench him and he goes off and now I'm going to put him back in my starting lineup and he's going to do fuck all next week. Tyreek Hill, keep an eye on Tyreek and the injuries. It's starting to make me fucking nervous if I'm being honest. And he's got a tough schedule coming up, but I think the Dolphins are just going to ride it out. I think he's going to ride it out. I think everything will be okay. I'm praying to the injury gods. Just please not fucking Tyreek. He is absolutely the centerpiece of my dynasty team. And this is a team that has Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tyreek is still very much the centerpiece of that. Brandon Ayuk, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Khalil Shakir, DJ Moore, Sun God, Amon-Ra, like I said, DK Metcalf. Remember when DK Metcalf sucked for fantasy? Yeah, 7 for 97 last week, and then I think 5 for 97 and a touchdown this week. Jaden Reed is like getting it done in myriad fashion, in different ways. He's getting rushing carries just as much as he's getting reception. So I really like Jaden Reed and what he's doing. And then DeAndre Hopkins, Puka Nacua, and Cortland Sutton. And then tight ends. Oh my fuck, the tight ends. George Kittle, and then literally like if you got 8 to 10 points, you were happy because the tight ends were fucking gross. And literally it was like Njoku, Schultz. So David Njoku, Dalton Schultz, Dalton Kincaid, the Dalton twins, TJ Hawkinson, and Trey McBride. Those are and shout out to Cade Otton too, who just continues to get like 7-8 points when you really need it. So like, man, the Titans were fucking bad. And then on defense, the Giants hilariously were number one. The Commanders were up there too with their 9 fucking sacks, even though they gave up points and lost the game. They had 5 sacks in the first quarter and then 9 overall, which is crazy. And then Bills, Cowboys, Dolphins, and 49ers. And I was even talking to my friend. I told him, because he had reached on Dallas Cowboys defense in our draft and my main home league. It's one of those things in home leagues, right? Like defenses tend to go a little bit earlier. But man, when you hit on a defense, and especially with the settings, not like it's super tilted to defense, but enough that if you get like a 30 burger from your defense, which is very possible in that league, it just, it tilts your matchup in such a way that it is very difficult to overcome. And so I had to give him credit. I didn't really believe in the pick when he made it because I think he took them single digit rounds still. It must have been between like 8th and 10th if I remember right. And I just was like, oh, that's I know they're good, but that's a bit of a reach. And no, it absolutely was not. They are a game changer defense when they're on. And then the Dolphins and 49ers kind of rounded it out for the defenses. And now, unfortunately, we get into those players that continue to frustrate
Just
us.
hit the pillow. See how you feel.
There's your fucking pillow.
Feel better?
Yeah, I do.
Man, the quarterback injuries this year, I can't remember a year this bad. Joe Burrow on Thursday night, and now it's confirmed that he's out for the year. And it's going to be Jake Browning for the rest of the year. So, unfortunately, Jamar Chase, it doesn't matter if you're open.
I'm open. I'm always fucking open. Excuse my profanity. I'm sorry.
Oh, man. Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Matt Stafford, those were kind of just like mediocre. Geno Smith also just kind of mediocre. And also keep an eye on him because he might not be available now for the Thursday game, which is like, Jesus, fuck. And then Bryce Young and Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett is single-handedly killing any fantasy value that any Steelers pass catchers might have. The only one who seems to be surviving somehow, who has the kryptonite to Kenny Pickett, is fucking Jaylen Warren. But like, dude, Deontay Johnson's safe floor does not exist right now. Like, it is a massacre.
Look how they massacred my boy.
For the running backs, Mostert, A-Shane, fuck. Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And Aaron Jones now, it looked worse apparently than it supposedly is. He may not be out for the season, but he's definitely going to miss at least a couple games, and it's just going to continue to be nagging injuries, and you're not going to be able to rely on him. So he's basic. And at this point in the season, like, if you've been struggling with Aaron Jones, I doubt that you kind of have this like superpower team. Maybe you've been able to survive it, and I'm wrong. I hope for your sake that I am, but like, yeah, you can probably ship out Aaron Jones at this point. Maybe wait until the injury thing comes out, but if it's anything more than 3 weeks, like, forget it. Darrell Henderson, even though he had the touchdown, like that. It's funny because that touchdown actually saved me in my home league, and I just barely won a gross matchup thanks to also Alexander Madison shitting the bed, who's also on this list. But it was rough, and my dynasty team is very much waiting for Kyren Williams to come back, and he's kind of been the only one who's really looked good for the Rams. So I'm hoping that he comes back into a fullish workload. Ken Walker suffered an oblique injury. It's been on every fantasy show that you've listened to. You've probably already heard about it. Obviously, Zach Charbonnet will be a number one waiver pickup if he is on your waivers. He isn't on like most of my leagues. I would say about 80 to 90% of my leagues. He's already stashed on somebody's bench. So, maybe you can try and trade for him. But if he is out there for some reason, if you're in maybe a shallower league, a home league, a little bit of a sleepier league, go ahead and pick him up. Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence stole his touchdowns. It was really funny. Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, they're just eating each other alive. James Conner, he was fine, but like just didn't get a touchdown. It wasn't really like what you would want from being against like the Houston Texans defense, who have been better as of late, honestly. So you may not be able to just absent-mindedly stream against the Texans defense, especially if they're playing at home and playing for the playoffs and playing for DeMeco Ryans and, really motivated. Austin Eckler, that's the other one that's been all over the fantasy waves. He looked like he was running with fucking bricks in his pockets. It's like, what is going on with Austin Eckler? And I'm assuming that it is, yes, a little bit of age and attrition, but also, probably it is the injuries really from this year specifically that I think are, causing him to struggle. And then Najee Harris. Holy fucking Christ, Najee Harris and this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And again, everyone outside of Jaylen Warren is just like, it's a sinking ship. And the fact that they have a winning record is just beyond me. But I fucking can't stand this team. And like, all I know is we need to get rid of Matt Canada. And well, that leads right into the wide receivers of Deontay fucking Johnson and even George Pickens. Like, you can't trust the wide receivers for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's 100 fucking yards. He had 100 yards. What are you going to do splitting up 100 yards for fantasy football? And there's no touchdowns. Like, watching this team, there's only one way to describe it. Pain. Terry McLaurin, Jacoby Myers, Christian Kirk, Jordan Addison, Amari Cooper. That one, kind of expected with DTR. Brandon Cooks turned back into a pumpkin. JSN continues to be irrelevant. Stephon Diggs, tough matchup against the Jets pass defense. Hollywood Brown, actually, if he would have just caught a long touchdown, would have totally changed the outcome of his game. Cooper Kupp, injured again. That one fucking sucks. He's going to miss time again. Gabe Davis continues to be fucking irrelevant. You can just drop him. You can drop Gabe Davis the way that Quentin Johnson dropped that game-winning touchdown. And then smash right into tight ends. Evan Ingram, Sam Laporta, Jake Ferguson, Cole Kmet. They were all whiffs. Mark Andrews, unfortunately, injured. You're going to have to probably look for an alternative option. I'll have some for you. None of them are named Isaiah Likely. And then Tyler Conklin, the Muth, and Chigo Okonkwo. Remember when Chigo Okonkwo was a thing? Yeah, he's not a thing. And then on defense, Bengals, Ravens kind of, ate each other out. That sounded weird. Whoops, didn't mean to say it that way. I meant that they, both scored enough points that neither defense was relevant. The Detroit Lions, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then Steelers Browns. Even though it was 13-10, it just kind of was like neither of them were, really great for fantasy. I think they were both in most scoring formats. They were under 10 points. So it just kind of sucked. We got a comment. Hey, shout out to Chandler Costantino. Thank you for joining in and dropping a question. Trade Tyreek Hill for Jamar Chase and ETN 18-team PPR. No, I'm not doing that. The only way that I would do that, you'd have to be extremely desperate at running back. Like if you're trying to run out, like I have a 16-team dynasty league where legitimately I started Royce Freeman this week. I actually started Chris Rodriguez because the choice was to choose between Chris Rodriguez and Royce Freeman. And I actually chose wrongly. I should have gone with Royce Freeman. That's why his name was in my mind. But no, I went with Chris Rodriguez, a rookie for the Washington Manders because of the Giants matchup. I thought maybe if they got up really fast, they would throw in the backup running back, and Antonio Gibson was out. So kind of that was my reasoning. The process was there, just not the results. So, and then with Tyreek, the only thing that I would worry about is, he is kind of a little bit of attrition, maybe getting a little gaining a couple nicks and scratches, some injuries. He did kind of briefly exit, but I think he came back in. He kind of just seems to do that. I'm sure he will remain questionable now next week against the Jets. That is a tough matchup. It's on the road. But then at Washington, Tennessee, home against the Jets, but then Dallas and at Baltimore. And, the Baltimore-Miami matchups have traditionally kind of always been high scoring, even when it's been at Baltimore. And that's your championship week. So I would be holding on pretty tightly to Tyreek Hill. Now, in normal circumstance, if Joe Burrow was there, then this trade is obvious. I would make it all day. But because it really feels like Jake Browning is definitely an unknown factor. If he just hyper targets Jamar Chase and Jamar Chase continues to actually be a wide receiver one for fantasy, then potentially this is a good trade for you. Again, I would have to be so hard up at running back. Again, in that dynasty league I mentioned, I have Kyren Williams on IR, who I'm hoping will come back next week. And then I have Derrick Henry, who's been struggling as of late. And then I'm choosing between guys like Royce Freeman and Chris Rodriguez and just absolute fucking nobodies. So I made a trade in that league. I traded Nico Collins and Rondale Moore to get Jerome Ford. Literally did it during the games. It was funny because it was right after Rondale popped off for that 50-yard touchdown. So I did manage to get also a 4th-round pick back for next year. Kind of irrelevant, but I kind of usually turn those into a little something. But bottom line is, I just personally don't think I can do it. If it's redrafted, doesn't feel quite as bad. But like Tyreek most weeks is going to outscore Chase with Browning and ETN combined. So I don't ever really like splitting $1 into 4 quarters. The only way that this would work out really for you is those 2 matchups against the Jets. Tyreek really struggles in both and or gets injured. Like you're betting on those 2 things happening. And you're also betting that Jake Browning will be able to support Jamar Chase like a wide receiver 2 or potentially a wide receiver 1 by just hyper targeting him. And then ETN, again, I do like ETN, but oh man, the real problem is, again, the spike weeks of Tyreek. When Tyreek goes off like he just did this week, he'll outscore both of them together most of the time. And it's like, that's the thing. Tyreek's spike weeks are, more consistent than damn near any other player in football, which is what makes Tyreek so good to begin with. So I really don't think I can do it. So just, everyone out there, hold on to your Tyreek Hill shares because people are trying. All right. Well, I'll get into a couple waivers. Waiver wires, I kind of suck at it. I don't even think I announced it on the show, to be honest. But people are hurting, and just the way that the schedule is going to come out, and I'll make a little announcement afterwards. But ultimately, I don't know. There's a million people out there doing waiver content, and a lot of them, I'm sure, are better at it than me. But here are some waiver wire names that I'll be looking at in a couple of my leagues. For quarterback, I think it's fucking abysmal. So here's a perfect example. Like I lost Joe Burrow in a Superflex league, and I'm looking at like potentially what are some quarterback replacements that I could get. Now, Desmond Ridder was dropped. He is floating out there. Heineke's going to miss weeks, and they're going to go back to Desmond Ridder, apparently. So that is an option. Now, in certain matchups, he actually probably is the best quarterback option available to me. Jameis Winston is another one. I actually think I would rank Jameis Winston first just because he's going to throw his 3 interceptions, but he's going to throw his 300 yards and 3 touchdowns also. So I like Jameis Winston. I think I would put him first, Desmond Ridder second. And then I actually think I would go with Jake Browning, the direct replacement for Joe Burrow for the Cincinnati Bengals. Kind of an unknown factor, but he will have Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon. He's got some weapons. You would think that T. Higgins comes back at some point. So that's maybe. And then, Tommy DeVito, shout out. Hey, I'm on waivers over here. Fucking, that's going to turn into the dumbest fucking joke, but I love it. I don't give a shit. Tommy DeVito, he's absolutely going to turn into a pumpkin, I bet, at some point. But hey, for shits and giggles, go add Tommy DeVito. For running backs, Zach Charbonnet is definitely going to be the main pickup of the week. But keep an eye out for Khalil Herbert. There are definitely teams that couldn't support holding him, depending how many IR spots you have, because there's been so many injuries this year. There's people who have just straight dropped him because they just said, fuck it, I don't want to hold him. I was able to pick him up in one of my leagues. And now with Deontay Foreman having suffered an ankle injury, we'll kind of see how that breaks down. But you would think that Khalil Herbert would be able to reclaim his starting job again. And if he does, he could end up being, kind of a sneaky great option down the stretch. He could even also be a low-end trade target if you're kind of a running back needy team and you want to take a little bit of a bet on someone. Samaje Perine, Ty Johnson, Salvin Ahmed, and Royce Freeman in like really deep leagues. So, Buddy mentioned the 18-team league that he was in. If you're in an 18-team league, then those are some of the names that you're probably looking at. And I would rank them very much in that order. Actually, I might boost Salvin Ahmed. I kind of like Salvin Ahmed. He is kind of a budget A-Shane. That is his role. So maybe, you go from A-Shane to Ahmed, and that works out. For wide receivers, Josh Downs may have been dropped, so just keep an eye on that. But Khalil Shakir, Greg Dortch, Rondale Moore, Curtis Samuel got ejected. He might be relevant, though. Jameson Williams is an interesting one. I've never really been a big believer in JMO, but, he's starting to catch touchdowns, and they are going to be very much tested and playing for the playoffs are the Lions. So I could see him having a role. To me, he's better than Josh Reynolds and Khalif Raymond and the other auxiliary options. He is the third, I would even say the fourth look in the offense. Obviously, it goes Sun God. And then I think, it's starting to be Jahmyr Gibbs is actually the second one. And then Sam Laporta and then Jameson Williams. So I think you can kind of look at it that way. But the big pickup, and I left his name out on purpose, Jaden Reed now 2 weeks in a row. Extremely fantasy relevant. He's becoming an integral piece of the Green Bay Packers offense. They used him very much in a rushing role, even that's how he got his touchdown. He had 3 for 46 and a touch, I think it was. But he's also obviously getting some receiving work. Jaden Reed would 100% be my number one priority for wide receivers as a waiver wire pickup. For tight ends, holy fucking shit. Stone Smart is a guy that exists in the NFL. He is a tight end for the Chargers, and he is relevant because tight ends are gross. Tanner Hudson for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the work was coming with Joe Burrow, but with Brown coming in, you would think that kind of safe middle option with the tight end might be a safety valve that he will use regularly. So he might still continue to have value, especially in tight end premium leagues, like a Scott Fishbowl, for example, where they get the 0.5 and first downs and so he is kind of fantasy relevant in some leagues, in very deep leagues. And then Cade Otton. I love Cade Otton because it's if you need 4, I keep joking, but it's true. If you need 4 for 50, I just need to not have a 0 from this tight end. I need 6 points. I need 8 points. Cade Otton, he's your man. On defense, the New England Patriots were probably dropped by a couple teams. I would 100% be targeting them. They will be at New York Giants. Tommy DeVito, 8-9 fucking sacks, even in the win, even when he looks good, 8-9 sacks. And he is due for some turnovers. So fire up New England defense. They're definitely going to be number one target for me. Denver Broncos have been playing much better. And Cleveland with DTR, not a great offense. Now the running backs could still pop off. That is kind of the only way Denver's been had, but they have been better as of late. So you could probably take a shot on Denver at home. And then I like the Saints. I mean, the fact that the Falcons are going to have to roll back to Desmond Ridder. Maybe they come out of the bye week and surprise us and just feed Bijan like a monster. It is a home game for the Falcons. So maybe actually even flip it. Flip that around, actually, because, Jameis Winston, with his many interceptions, you can almost count on you got to count at least 3 Jameis Winston turnovers. And I just don't really like their offense. So flip this. Actually, I was going to say the Saints. Excuse me. We're actually going to go with the Falcons. The Falcons defense as a streaming defense. And then last and least, but hey, they're people too. Kickers. Matt Amendola versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is kicking for the Houston Texans and just kicking a lot of field goals, so he's a good option. Always look to see the kickers that got dropped. There are definitely people like myself that will not hold a kicker, even a good one, through a bye week. Young Wei Koo, he potentially was dropped in your league. If he was, he is probably an upgrade at whatever kicker that you currently have, unless you have like a McFearless, a butt kicker, a Justin Tucker. If you have a very premium kicker like that, that's fine. But if you don't, you can use an instant upgrade like a Younghoe Koo, who also has a good matchup because New Orleans defense is good enough to force multiple field goals from the Falcons. And then Jake Moody, the kicker for the San Francisco 49ers, is a good option. And they're going to be on the road against Seattle. So you would expect him to have a couple more opportunities. So I'm going to cut it short today because I actually have a big show coming for you guys. All you wild and weird listeners out there, all 76 of you that have subscribed to this channel. I appreciate every one of you. Even if you're not subscribed, hey, I appreciate you. If you're just out listening and you're trying to give this a shot, you're probably like, hey, what's this guy doing in his bedroom? Yeah, this is my shitty living room. I'll admit it. I'm just a dude living in my apartment in Quebec, Canada. But man, do I fucking love fantasy sports. And I've been doing fantasy football for a hot minute. And I know my football, I smoke and I know things. So shout out to all you listeners. We'll do a little toke-ski right here together. But I wanted to announce that I actually have put something together for American Thanksgiving, which honestly, shout out to the guest that's going to be on the show, because I would not have even thought about it, being that I'm from Canada, and for me, Thanksgiving has already passed. So, Dustin Ludke, who does all kinds of work, he's done work, I think, with fantasy and actually, you know what? I was about to just talk out of my ass and try and remember it. I'm going to go pull it up. Give me 1 second here. Fantastic audio and video. Just, super prepared like I always am. I probably would have just remembered it correct anyways, because I just had him on the show for Wildcard Wednesday. It is pre-recorded. It is not released yet. It is yet to come, so keep an eye on that. I would have remembered it wrong. So, Dustin Ludke, who is a content director for Dynasty Pros FF, a growth and planning strategist for Front Office Pros, a contributor for Dynasty Nerds and the QB List, and an FSWA member. So he is too legit to quit. He is the stats and spreadsheets numbers guy. He is the stat cruncher. So basically, he will provide, I feel like, an exceptional and different perspective than what my dumbass usually is providing on this show. And we'll have a great little fun segment. So, we're both actually big pro wrestling fans. So this weekend coming up is going to be War Games. So Dustin and I will prepare our own little war games that the audience will be able to vote on in the comments. So again, make sure that you super kick that subscribe button. Make sure you drop an elbow on those comments. Make sure you fuck up that algorithm with that 1-2 piece, those Walter chops. And as always, we end Monday Mayhems with the shout outs, the list of Joker. You just made the list.
You just made the list!
You just made the list! Oh my God. You just made the list! Those stupid soccer mom's hair! You just made the list!
Now, she's reporting her neighbor, who's ex-Catholic by her demand, and Larry's supposed to talk to. Well, she doesn't know what to do. She says we shop for her from Colleyville. Says she hates me ever since I arrived. Says I'm not allowed to go unheard. We got to a beach challenging in court. That I will not be an occupant of an assembly hall in her state. They're there to say that she's having fun. Not with yet this policy. Let's leave her say she just moved in. And then she just, she don't want the challenge. Here we go. She plays with Pittsburgh Steelers. She wants no Bowling Green, Ohio. That's bad luck, but she wants someone else. Here we go. Here we go.